Good morning, everyone. Kate here. I'm joining you from Melbourne. Fee, you're at home.
Yeah. Hi, Kate. It looks about the same there. Cloudy and overcast. I've got a bit of rain here.
So today we wanted to, we mentioned this. We actually did a Facebook Live from the Brené Brown course. We did Dare to Lead, which we did now I think it's nearly 4 weeks ago, actually, I think. And so what we wanted to do was in Core Confidence, the book, we do a lot of, crossover and referencing of Brené. So we wanted to share with you some of, our key insights from that workshop. Loads, as you can imagine, that we got from that day, and lots of different pieces. Certainly the 2-day workshop goes deeper into the content in the book. Dare to Lead, certainly for me, was one of my favorite books, probably my favorite book for 2020. And I guess we wanted to start with one of the pieces around this concept of the arena that she talks about. I really love, I love the concept because I think it gives you an opportunity to think about, when am I in and when am I out? And so when am I showing up and playing in the arena, and when am I actually choosing not to? And this whole piece around who do I compare myself to, and who do I give voice to when it comes to feedback. I think that whole concept of who's watching and who's judging me, and therefore how much effort and attention do I even give the feedback that's coming that way, and then how am I choosing to show up every day in the arena, and who do I bring? What's the person that I bring? The quote that she referenced that I loved, and I've written it in my journal that you gave me as part of one of my affirmations that I say every day, which is, and this is the guiding quote around the book, which is, it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again and again, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he falls, at least falls by daring greatly. So I love just the visualization of every day, and the circle back, for us around the work in confidence. Every day I choose to show up as my 100% unshakable, unbreakable, confident self. That doesn't mean that I won't fail. In fact, it's knowing that I fail and still doing it anyway, which is where the magic happens. And I love that aspect of her work.
Mm. Yeah, no, it's such a powerful reframe, I think, for so many of us who see, failure or people criticizing when things go wrong as though there's some kind of, truth in that. Whereas there is this other beautiful way to see it, and to actually go, you know what? Most of the critical voices don't count. They're not important. And it's actually about me. And I did everything I could in the arena. I showed up with my best self, doing the best I could. And whether I failed or succeeded is less important than the fact I was there giving it my all.
Yeah, for sure. And so for you, I know this conversation around armor, because, you could go into the arena with your armor, or you could go in, without that, which on some level, may mean that you feel vulnerable. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated by Brené's research around, it's not so much fear that stops us. It's maybe residual old fear, but it's what we've done as a result of the past fear. It's our armoring up that gets in the way. So when we have an opportunity to do something new or risky or that feels unsafe, we catch ourselves, and what holds us back is the way we're trying to protect ourselves. We're trying to actually, keep ourselves safe by not fully leaning in, by not fully showing up, by not doing it, because that's what, somewhere in our brain feels like the best choice. And she talks then a lot about, it's the courage to keep the armor off, to stay in that moment of vulnerability, the beauty, the depth, the transcendence, the humanness of our vulnerability, and to just sink in and to allow that to be present for a little bit of time. And she's crunched the data on this. And I think, when we talk about leadership and we talk about, this is a whole book on Dare to Lead, what she found was that if you can't do that, if you can't stay in your own vulnerability, if you can't share that vulnerability, you actually can't lead.
Yeah, I love her her focus on not getting it perfect. I think it really cycles back for us. When we think about, chapter 3, know your stuff, and the message around perfectionism, which we know is, plays out for lots of women. And this piece around, we've just jumped off a call this morning where we've been with clients talking about this. You don't have to get it perfect. Her positioning is dare to suck, right? It's getting at it at a 5 or a 6 or a 7 out of 10. It's not expecting the 10s and the 12s out of 10. That actually it's okay for me to play or it's okay for me to lean in, be uncomfortable, have a go, and at least have done that and be really humble about that. If I've had a conversation with a staff member, with a partner, anyone that feels difficult or feels like it takes courage, that I've done that with my vulnerability. And maybe then I've just gone, you know what, hey, can we circle back to that in a day or two? I recognize that it hasn't been the most eloquent or, well articulated conversation, but it's one we needed to have. And I'd really like to check in with you in a day or so. Would that be okay? And so focusing on actually showing up and taking the act, and what we would say is the act of confidence, rather than waiting to take the perfect act of confidence.
Yes, yeah, it's so easy to get caught in not doing something in the right way, or it not landing well, that we end up not doing it at all. And I think just preparedness to do something and then acknowledge the truth of that. So again, that's another act of vulnerability, right? That might not have landed well. I didn't speak as well. I want to check in with you again. That in itself says, I know I didn't get it perfect, and it's okay. And I'm giving us both space and time so that we can regroup around it. I really, again, just be vulnerable.
Yeah, and be prepared to have the courageous conversation. So loads of amazing resources in that book. She's got a whole website with checklists and all sorts of really good things. I think, our one of the reasons I love it so much is it's so practical. It's so real. It talks about the tough conversations, and there's lots of great examples in there around language as well, which we know gets in the way of, people speaking up and having the tough conversations. So, we would absolutely 100% recommend you grabbing that book. I love Dare to Lead because for me, it brings together a lot of the research and the thinking in many of the other books, and it wraps it in a leadership context. So yes, it's relevant for you personally, but it'll also give you some frames and resources to show up and really take this work into your work life and your relationships with your staff and colleagues as well. So I think, without going into too much detail, because we could, it was a 2-day course, we could talk about it forever. All we will say is love her work, love the research foundation of that work, and just loads of amazing gold nuggets that really kind of allow you to go a little bit deep into some of what we talk about in the Core Confidence book.
Yeah, thanks, Kate.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day. We'll see you next week.